going on, everybody? Got an update for you on this Monday evening. We got that big storm system getting underway in the Midwest right now, and with that, we're going to see some big-time blizzard conditions, a whole lot of severe weather tomorrow, and also even on Wednesday and maybe even into Thursday, unsettled weather continuing throughout the East Coast, before finally we get to a bit of a nicer Easter weekend, at least for some of us, although others there, especially in the Southeast, looks to kind of have not the best Easter weekend, at least in terms of how nice it'll be outside, but it does at least definitely look safer than maybe the next couple of days here over the Midwest and kind of Mid-South region. So with that said, let's go ahead and get right into your forecast. So we'll start here by looking at those hazards, and as you can tell, we have a very colorful map today. We'll start up here in this kind of northern section of these colors on the map here, and this is indicating blizzard warnings, winter storm warnings, and winter weather advisories all the way from Nevada and Utah up through the Dakotas and into Minnesota. So this is going to be a very big time winter storm for you folks up that direction. And then while we're dealing with that there, we're going to be dealing with big-time severe storms here along the Mississippi River Valley, and some of us could really see quite the strong storm or two here, especially up into the Midwest, where we already have a moderate risk issued for those storms, and we could potentially go to high risk tomorrow, but right now, luckily, things have kind of downtrended just a little bit. I won't say I regret, but I caution by saying that just because I don't want you to let your guard down, because a moderate risk is still the second highest level you can get, and, I just don't want anyone to let their guard down, because I'm sure a lot of people have seen that this threat may have downtrended a little bit, but don't let that catch you off guard, because I still think we'll likely get at least one or two very strong tornadoes tomorrow here in this Mississippi River Valley region. But other than that, right now, we do have a lot of wind with this system as well, much like the one last week. So with that, we have a lot of high wind warnings, wind advisories, and red flag warnings over the desert Southwest and southern plains as that wind begins to pick up as this low pressure system begins to strengthen over these regions. So I'm taking a look at radar right now. Over here into the east, we have kind of two different areas of unsettled weather. One kind of boundary setting up here over the Midwest. And with that, this warm air is beginning to be lifted northward as this kind of warm front here of sorts continues to push northward. And we also have some showers here into sections of the southeast. And this is actually what's left over of that severe weather that we had yesterday into Texas. This has moved on over into the southeast, and we even had probably a confirmed tornado, I'd say, over sections of southern Georgia today. So like we talked about yesterday, we did have some severe storms fire off here into the southeast, but luckily for now, most of this is just good old-fashioned rain here in the Carolinas and Georgia, with some isolated stronger storms back here towards Alabama and Mississippi. But as we go into overnight tonight, that should begin to clear up. The other big story here on the radar is the beginning of this big storm system getting underway out west, and this is some snow already following here into sections of South Dakota, and this is really going to pile up. A lot of us are going to get over a foot of snow with this thing here in sections of the Dakotas, but we'll take a look at that map here later on in the video. So taking a look at satellite, again, pretty much what radar is showing. We got some unsettled weather here over the southeast, and this warm front beginning to push north here through the Midwest and Northeast. Other than that, you can see this unsettled weather beginning here over the northern plains, as we just looked at on radar. So, starting with a severe weather threat tomorrow, again, we have a moderate risk up here into sections of the Midwest, and then another moderate risk down here now issued into sections of Missouri and Arkansas. So, this is really going to be a lot of the exact same areas that were under the gun on Friday, here with another kind of bimodal setup, which I know you probably hear that a lot, and again, that just means we have two separate areas of distinct severe weather threat, but just like last time, don't let your guard down here in between. St. Louis, you might be in this enhanced risk thinking, okay, I'm kind of in a safe place kind of between these two risks, but an enhanced risk here is still plenty strong enough to get dangerous storms, so don't let your guard down anywhere really that's kind of shaded in on the map here. That's just tomorrow. Wednesday, we have another area of severe weather, and actually I just realized this map isn't quite up to date, so I'm not quite sure why that is, but anyway, this kind of slight risk now really extends all the way down into this red area I have drawn on the map, so just imagine this is also shifted further to the south and east, but either way, it's still the same kind of areas under the gun that are shown on this map, with that threat of severe weather here kind of right into the central part of the eastern half of the country. So from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf Coast, so Louisiana all the way up here towards Ohio and Michigan under the gun for severe weather on Wednesday. And then by the time we get into Thursday, that threat appears to die down pretty substantially as this front kind of weakens and moves off to the southeast. All right, so now talking about some of these winter weather impacts as well. Again, we're going to have extreme impacts here into sections of the Dakotas and Wyoming, and this is just because of how much snow and how much wind we're going to see combined here. And again, once we get into this extreme category, that's whenever travel is just impossible. Conditions really just become dangerous at that point. And even in this kind of major color here with that red, that also signifies very big time impacts here for a big swath of the Dakotas and Wyoming. All right, so we'll start here up into the northern plains, and we'll move this ahead into time. Again, starting tonight. Also, I should actually mention time here, local time, is up here in the top right, so you get an idea of what time you're looking at on radar here. But as we move this ahead into the overnight tonight, and once we really get into early tomorrow morning, this blizzard is really going to begin to get underway here into the Dakotas, and you'll notice this big area of heavy snow ongoing and the wind blowing with this as well. And then once we get really into really late tomorrow morning into early tomorrow afternoon, we're going to begin to get these storms to fire here right along the Mississippi River here towards Iowa, Missouri, and Illinois. And these are going to be very dangerous storms, especially here as we get later into the afternoon and some of these storms begin to mature. They're going to become more dangerous. So this kind of first round of storms here that forms in the early morning hours, I don't expect too much severe weather with this, but it could be some storms here that have some strong winds and hail, but I think the real tornado threat comes later in the day. You'll notice as the surface low really makes its way into Iowa, and we have these full-blown blizzard conditions all the way up through northern Minnesota. Going into about 2, 3, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon is whenever I expect the initiation of these very dangerous storms. And these I don't think will be nearly as widespread as they were on Friday, but nonetheless, they will be just as dangerous as Friday. So any of these storms here that move through sections of eastern Iowa, northern Illinois, and southern Wisconsin are going to have the ability to really pack a punch. And, of course, we'll have that tornado threat, but either way, definitely strong winds and hail as well before they finally kind of weaken as they move up past the Great Lakes. The other big time story here is look at all of this wintry precipitation up here from sections of the northern plains up through the northern Great Lakes. This is going to be quite the winter storm to remember for a lot of those folks up in that region. And this is into tomorrow night as that low pressure begins to move on through. And finally, we kind of clear out as this begins to continue to push east. But as we get into Wednesday, I want you to notice here, we get another round of these storms to begin to fire up here into southern sections. Actually, let me make the pin not that massive, sorry. But down here, further to the east and south, we'll get another area of this convection to fire on Wednesday that once again could be severe here through sections of Indiana, Michigan, even sections of Illinois again, and then back down to the south and west. So talking about snowfall totals here, again, more than a foot of snow is going to be very widespread here into this big swath between the Dakotas and back towards Wyoming. And again, this is going to be with wind gusts getting past 50 miles an hour for prolonged periods of time. So this is very easily blizzard conditions. It's not one of those borderline events. It is just downright blizzard conditions for a lot of you folks there in the Dakotas, but especially here into southeastern North Dakota and then north central South Dakota. So now moving this story on to the south and east. Let me back this map up because this is moved a little bit far ahead, but okay, there we go. So we'll go ahead and back this up. Again, we have this area of rain moving on through the southeast right now. Luckily, as we go through the overnight tonight, that begins to weaken really, and then begin to kind of move out as we get into tomorrow morning. So I think by the time we get into sunrise tomorrow, all of this precipitation is really off the coast. Maybe some leftover showers here into eastern North Carolina, but definitely nicer weather than we're experiencing right now in these areas. But in terms of the severe weather tomorrow, it looks to really again, it's going to be pretty isolated, I think, at least compared to last Friday. But nonetheless, any of these storms that fire off here back towards Arkansas tomorrow afternoon could become dangerous. Let me back this map up because I went a little bit far ahead. But one thing you will notice is this is definitely more scattered and not quite as bad of a look as we had last Friday back here towards Arkansas. But again, if any of these storms can fire, they have that potential to become quite dangerous quite quickly here in that southern section of that severe risk. But then again, once we get into kind of Wednesday afternoon, we get that second round of severe weather here through much of the Ohio and Tennessee river valleys. And again, that slight risk does extend all the way down back to Louisiana now. for this line of storms that is likely to move on through during Wednesday afternoon. And once again, we'll have a tornado threat with those, as well as strong straight line winds and some isolated hail. So now looking at this kind of big picture, again, starting tonight into tomorrow, the big story is this big-time blizzard up into the northern plains and this isolated severe weather threat, although any storms that do form will be very strong. So anywhere here from Iowa all the way down to Arkansas, seeing those strong storms tomorrow afternoon. And then as we kind of move this ahead in time into Wednesday afternoon, that severe threat shifts off down to the Ohio and Tennessee River Valley. And then as we get into Thursday morning and Thursday afternoon, you kind of notice we're going to get this front to stall out here over the southeast. So I think the severe threat will go down as we get to Thursday, but we're still going to have rain moving through sections of the southeast. And unfortunately, that front looks to kind of stay there and hang around through this weekend. So if you got plans on Easter, I think Friday and Saturday look pretty rainy through much of the southeast. Maybe by the time we get into Easter Sunday, things will become a little bit nicer, although we then look to have low pressure form off the coast, and that could ride up the coast. So depending on the placement of that low pressure will definitely depend on how many of us see how much rain on Easter Sunday. But right now, I would definitely favor any rain closer to the coastal regions here of the southeast on Easter compared to more of the inland areas into Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Appalachian chain. And then as we go into next week, maybe another kind of unsettled pattern moves back in, but that's far enough away that we won't worry too much about that. Talking about these temperatures now, again, we're going to get a very big surge of this warm air going into Wednesday and Thursday. And let me change this pen color so you can see a little bit better. But again, as that southerly flow really kicks in and that warm air begins to advect northward here from the Gulf of Mexico, feeding those strong storms, that's going to be very warm, very unstable, above average for this time of the year. And again, we're getting into early April now, so this could be really getting up into the 80s pretty consistently for many of us here in the eastern half of the United States. And then after that kind of front moves through, things become more average, except for here into the southeast where that front kind of stalls out, and we get more of a rainy kind of below average setup here for much of the I-85 and I-20 corridor here. And that, again, is going to last through much of Friday, Saturday, and likely Easter Sunday before we begin to kind of rebound, I think, going into early next week in terms of temperatures. So looking long range, looking 6 to 10 days, we do have the very high likelihood of well above average temperatures working their way back into the forecast back out west, with more average temperatures here in the east. And in terms of precipitation, it looks to begin to dry out a bit. So I think we'll get a little bit of a lull from all the severe weather we've seen. And this dry weather looks to kind of lock itself back in. So I think going really past a week out, we look to have more of a kind of nice springtime pattern where it'll be drier and definitely warmer. So that'll be nice for a lot of us. There's definitely hope on the horizon if you're tired of all this crazy severe weather moving on through. And I'm sure plenty of us, especially those that have been impacted by it, are definitely excited to see that change in the forecast moving forward. But with all that said, I hope you are staying safe out there. Again, make sure you have a way to get those warnings tomorrow. Make sure you're staying up to date with the kind of latest way to get weather, however that is for you. And I'll have another video out for you tomorrow with an update on that storm as it is unfolding. But with all that said, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you then.